Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Guyana Dialogue. As you know, the Guyana Dialogue is being presented by a group of Guyanese resident in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, the Caribbean, and in Guyana. This program is brought to you with the kind courtesy of well-known philanthropist and business executive, Mr. Dave Narayan of Dave Vision Inputs. With us today, we have our panelist is Professor Muniram Budu, who is an engineer, structural and civil engineer by profession, and also our traveling or roving journalist, Dr. Vishnu Bisram. He will join us later. And our honored guest this evening is prominent businessman and philanthropist, Dr. Komal Singh. So, welcome to you, Dr. Komal Singh. I know you had a different engagement today, but you have decided to join us, and we thank you very much for making yourself available because you have some very important news to convey to the Guyanese people because what you're going to speak about tonight is hardly ever covered by the local press. The local press is so much consumed with political issues and they avoid important issues relating to health and other sectors of the economy. So before we go into our subject, I would like you to make some general remarks about the help that Guyana is offering to Venezuela, consequent to the 7 point something on the Richter scale hurricane that
Hurricane.
affected Venezuela. So please proceed.
Thank you very much, Doc and team. It's always a pleasure, having conversation on Guyana growth and development with you guys. So yes, under the leadership and the direction of His Excellency President Ali, um, a few days ago, since the aftermath of the earthquake, he mobilized the group of private sector, government, a team to work on preparing relief supplies for Venezuela. Currently, we are in the process of finalizing the mobilization of close to 6 to 8,000 tons of cargo that will be moving from Guyana to Venezuela within a few days to help support some of the relief effort that is taking place. The feedback, I must say, from the Guyanese population has been enormous. I mean, it's so encouraging to see that our Guyanese, and I've been doing this for the last 10 years, working very closely with CDC on relief efforts throughout the Caribbean. But it's always a very pleasing to see Guyanese come together in very large scale across the length and breadth of Guyana, put in whatever little they can to help in the relief effort. Over the last 5 days, we have seen individuals, even many persons who are born and grown in Venezuela, who lived in Guyana. That grouping also came together in very large scale, offering support to send back stuff home. So I think, as a nation, we are very pleased to be working closely with the government to offer whatever little relief we can to the people of Venezuela. It is a very tragic situation. I think we all need to put our hands on board to see how we can help in this humanitarian effort in Venezuela at this point in time.
So, which agency is coordinating the relief efforts?
The coordination is usually done, any relief effort out again is being coordinated by Civil Defense Commission in collaboration with the private sector organization across the country.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's move on to our subject. But I want to ask you something before we forget to give us an update on the white sugar refinery and the fertilizer at Wales. So I thought I should get in, lest I forget it later part in the program. And those are two very important projects which you are directly involved with. So if you can give us an update on those two projects.
So both projects are moving ahead as per plan.
sugar
Uh,
factory
we,
and
yes.
fertilizer plant as well.
So the white sugar refinery, we're currently in the process of demolishing the existing old sugar estate that was closed down in the 2017 or 2016. That plant is currently being teared down. We're going to replace right in that same position a brand new white sugar refinery. That refinery, so the groundwork is currently in process for the white sugar refinery. We're looking at an estimated time of completion maybe by the first half of next year to have that completed. Given some of the challenges in terms of shipping around the world, projects is getting pushed back right now. As it relates to the fertilizer blending plant, the plant is already in country. We're hoping to do a sod turning in July for the commencement of the civil work on that project. That project also is, if all goes well, we should have it up and running by the first quarter of 2027. So when those both projects are completed, it will significantly help the agriculture sector in Guyana, both from Gaisuko and the sugarcane standpoint, and fertilizer also from the entire agri sector.
But isn't there another company that is setting up plant for another fertilizer factory down at Wales?
So let me bring to a very clear distinction between what we're doing and what is built to be done at close to the gas to energy location. What we're building out right now as a private investment between ourselves and Forsan out of Dominican Republic, we're building out a fertilizer blending plant. What is going to be built at Wales Development close to the gas energy site is a whole urea ammonia plant. So currently we will be importing urea to satisfy our need. But when that bigger project gets on stream, we now will be producing our own urea in Guyana. So we no longer need to import urea. So that's a whole different project from what we're doing. That one is a lot more complex, utilizing gas to convert that into fertilizer.
Mhm. All right, thank you. Yeah, now we're talking about. I know a lot of people say that when you tell them that we are building roads, bridges, and ports, etc. Some people have been saying we're looking at eat roads and etc. Very cynical. They don't see the immediate connection between road and development, or ports, or bridges. The connection. There's something Professor Boodoo always said. There should be a national network to show how these things are all interconnected in the development process. So you can probably give us some descriptive and analytical perspective on this, since you're involved as chairman of the Guyana Shipping Association as well. You'll be involved in all the logistical work and very much acquainted with the role of these infrastructural projects. So you can please go ahead and give a general view, then we can go into specifics.
Thank you, Doc. Guyana's economic development can only be sustained if we build strong regional logistics network that allows us to efficiently move our goods across the Caribbean and beyond. Right? The regional food security that is being pushed among member states currently, it is important for that to move through in order to make sure that we have continuity on a strong supply chain, given all the challenges that we're seeing around the world. With the gas to energy project looking to be completed sometime the end of this year or early next year, when that project gets on stream, and because of where the region, and not just Guyana, the region where we focus in to strengthen our food security side of the market, when Guyana becomes up and running and our manufacturing sector becomes one that will meet and exceed the need that we need in Guyana, if we don't have a proper logistics network to move the goods across the region timely, efficiently, and in a very economic manner, we will run into a bottleneck where we have all these things we're producing, but yet we cannot meet the market that is so close to us. So the conversation over the last year, I will say, among heads of state, we have heard President Ali working closely with other regional heads to develop a strong um, network to move our goods around the region. We've also heard President Ali allude to development of an international airport in Latam, allowing us to move product from that part of the region straight to the Caribbean region. You've seen also locally the amount of money that is being spent on developing ports across this country, not in just one single area. The importance of all of those infrastructure development is to set our network in such a way that we don't need to move goods or produce from Porica all the way into Georgetown to have it shipped back into Trinidad when Porica is closest to Trinidad and to some part of the other region. So the importance of these developments is critical to the sustainable growth of our economy. And if we don't do that now and we don't build out and spend money on those infrastructure, we can run into a situation where we're producing excess capacity of goods, but we cannot get it to the markets at a competitive price. So I will say to everybody, you need to understand the importance of infrastructure and how that is related to economic opportunities and economic growth of a country.
Yeah, but the infrastructure, are these only important for transportation of goods? What about other type of activities like movement of people and
This infrastructure is not just for goods; it's for goods and services moving or people also around easily. Most of the highways that have been constructed across our country currently, when you looked at the amount of time that we used to traverse to get from point A to point B, some of those time move from like a 2, 3 hours to an hour or less than an hour in some cases. And that when you take the manpower lost, if someone has to sit in a line for a day, spending 2 to 3 hours, when you put a value to that loss, it's very significant. And persons now can utilize those time to do more valuable thing for themselves and their family. So it's a significant benefit to people also for some of these infrastructure that we see being built out in Guyana.
and and when these where these infrastructures are being cited, won't they also help to enhance the value of real property along them?
Well, you see, I can sit with you and talk for the whole night on the benefits of these infrastructure development. These infrastructure development that has been taking place are very strategic. The government, we must commend the government when you really looked at some of these infrastructure, if not all the infrastructure that is being built out, major infrastructure. The government is very strategic in how they develop these areas. It caters for the environment, it caters for the people, it caters for industrial, commercial development. And when all of that take place and a road or a highway passes through a village, I can tell you property value move from 5,000 Guyana dollars per acre, in some cases to 400,000, not 5,000, sorry, 5,000 US dollars per acre. In some cases, that 5,000 move when a highway goes through to 400,000, 500,000 dollars per acre. Property value automatically goes up. The equity value of the community automatically goes up. So there is a real benefit also, even to persons who are not doing anything. By just the development alone, it creates a value increase to property within those areas.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Now over to Professor Budu.
Hi, Dr. Komal Singh. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
I'm glad you could come on this program and share some of the things that are happening in Guyana. Now, this is an exciting period for Guyana, especially for those of us in the diaspora learning about the country's rapid transformation from you and others we had on this program. There's a lot of pride, but also a strong desire for accountability and long term impact. You highlighted some important infrastructure projects, and the description is sometimes not necessarily you, but others I've heard. It looks very rosy. Right? After many decades abroad, I visited Guyana last October with Dr. Tara Singh and some others. I witnessed the transportation that has taken place in the various sectors in Guyana. What I'm going to do is utilize about half my allocated time on this panel to share some concerns and issues I have based on my interaction with top government officials, engineers, contractors, and ordinary people, and site visits to important ongoing work, such as you mentioned, the gas to energy project in Wales, shore based facilities, and others. I would then ask you to respond. Now, the issues and concerns may appear to some of our viewers as criticism of the present government. This is not the intention. This government has done a tremendous job in transforming Guyana in a very short time. The government is in a hurry to get an assortment of infrastructure built. Hurriedness in building out infrastructure, such as the roads that you mentioned, the bridges, and so forth, can cause significant problems that can derail the government achievement and diminish the value for public expenditure. That is plan. In engineering, we have something that we say: you plan in three and build in one. That is, planning takes about three times the time to build. Of course, the government cannot adhere to this because the infrastructure works are decided by politicians in their mandates, and the 5-year election cycle dictates what gets done. So planning, if any, is short term, but the projects you mentioned require long term planning, following some kind of master plan. I asked various ministers about such a plan, but so far I have not seen any or heard that such plan exists. Roads and bridges, as we all agreed on, should be part of a transportation network involving land, air, and water to move goods, services, and people efficiently at the lowest possible cost, and also be the kind of vehicle for economic development. You mentioned some of the things that takes place when you have roads going through a neighborhood. Again, I cannot get hold of a master transportation plan, a sort of a Google map of the existing, the under construction, and the future transportation system, and how all modes are seamlessly connected. My experience in Guyana, I'm going to relate some of that. Again, I want you to respond because I think it's going to be important. Arriving at the existing Chedijagan International Airport and then driving to Georgetown shows hand down that you are in a third world country. An airport is really a gateway to country. It must make a statement of identity, inviting, and it must emotionally connect the visitor to want to see the country. The drive from the airport to the city must continue that emotional connection and be pleasant. The airport and the drive to Georgetown leave much to be desired. Why only now is the airport road being reconstructed with the resulting traffic chaos? I hope that the road will be well built with proper landscaping and maintained in a clean state. Singapore, Shanghai, Dubai and Doha are some good examples of how airports and transportation cities should be. I do not expect Guyana to copycat these cities, but the concepts and principles can be adopted and modified for local conditions. Now, let me summarize a few more important issues before I hand over to you. The developments in Guyana are concentrated on the coastline plains and along riverfronts. The gas to energy facility is a good example. And I know you are building some facility nearby. The soils are essentially alluvial deposits that require good quality investigation and engineering design experience. The geotechnical investigation for many developments that I saw and talked about there are minimal. And the design and construction of foundation I saw are questionable. For example, I saw substandard wooden piles used in a multi-story building foundation. Those piles should be nowhere near a construction site. Concrete was poured in the formwork for a pile cap with water in the formwork. The contractor I spoke to him. He did not see that either the substandard piles or the poured concrete in a partially flooded formwork as unacceptable. He said that's typical. We get rain, we just pour, right? We can't delay. So what you will see in Guyana later on, you will see a lot of cracking in buildings. You will see uneven roads, and so forth, including failures and collapse. Flooding is another issue. Guyanese are accustomed to flood events and suffered from them. The drainage from many of the developments I saw, including housing, ends up in the oversubscribed drainage systems that were built by the Dutch and British for the sugar industry. There are lessons from other countries that can be applied to Guyana to arrest the flooding problem that will only grow as you get more of these developments that are planned and the negative aspects of climate change are felt. No, there's also another issue that I think that is neglected in Guyana. It's about hydrogeology. And I have seen some area where this is going to be major problem in Guyana, and it can lead to catastrophic collapse of some very expensive infrastructure. Project and program management is poor or non-existent or is corrupt. Quality control I also saw was poor. There seems to be a preference for crooked lines than straight lines. I spoke to a couple of contractors in Guyana. One of them was a lawyer, the other was an accountant. And these guys are building roads, but they do not know what engineering drawings are and will certainly not know how to read them. Now, there are more issues, but I will stop here with a last caveat. Some viewers may question how I make these comments only after a short visit to Guyana. That is a fair question. Well, I worked in Guyana in many areas of civil engineering, including roads and bridges, geotechnical and structural engineering, drainage, sea defense, and feasibility of hydropower. I work as a consultant engineer in many other countries apart from being a professor. Recently, I was hired as a peer reviewer consultant on a couple of completed projects in Guyana. Actually, these were not peer review, but forensic engineering, because these projects were already built but had problems, serious problems. I was hired to diagnose these problems and recommend fixes. The issues and concerns I raised are not unique to Guyana. Last year, I visited several African countries and South Asian countries. Many of these countries are rapidly developing. The first thing people complain about is corruption in public works. The word corruption seems to be a go-to word to capture the causes of the issues and concerns I just raised. But these issues and concerns are all addressable and should be addressed to build in quality infrastructure with public expenditure. Now, Komal, I'll hand over to you for your reaction to this.
Thank you very much, Professor. You raised some valid concern, concern that we've seen around here quite often. We've heard about them quite often. But let me touch on the road network first. You mentioned coming from the airport, it looks like a third world country because of what is happening and the new development. What you have not been seeing, or what many people have not been seeing at this point in time, the new highway from the Heroes Highway, that highway is actually going all the way. The plan is to take it all the way to the airport. So right now, as we speak, there's tremendous amount of work that is taking place at the back there, from Craig all the way to Lanarkshire. And I think they're currently looking at the next phase from Lanarkshire, maybe that will take them straight to the Linden Highway, and then from Linden Highway straight into the Timehri International Airport. So I would say, based on what I've seen around the place, there is a very clear-cut guidance as it relates to the road network, how that interconnects to commercial, industrial activity, how it connects to help our people. And I'll take a moment just to mention a few, just for your information. The road from Lethem to Georgetown and connected into Boris Berbice so far has been proven to be the best area for have a deep water port. The deep water port is so important for all the development that is taking place to help it to connect mega vessel coming in here and us moving cargo from here. And also when the road is completed from Latem, the amount of cargo that is projected to come from northern Brazil, it's important we have that connection in place on road via water, into water. So that network is already in stream. That alignment is already there. Government have already identified where that is going. Now, when stuff comes into Berbice, there's currently a study taking place right now. How are we going to move product easily, and not just product, people from Berbice into Georgetown? There's currently a study being done to look at the rail movement from Berbice into Georgetown. That is significantly will help moving our people and goods when it comes into Berbice and from Georgetown to go back into Berbice into that deep water port. Let's take a look now, going back from Porica, heading into connecting Bartica, connecting the Escuba Islands. There's currently a plan. The Goshen Highway is going to go all the way down on the back. There is going to be a plan to develop a crossing somewhere around Monkey Jump here that's take you over into Bartica. And then when you get into Bartica, they're currently looking at also bridging somewhere around Tipiro area to onto another side. When you look at all those development, it is not done in isolation of our people and the business environment. So I think when you look at it on the face value, you will think things are not happening. But if you really dive deeply around into our country, you will see and you will have a little bit more appreciation that there's a lot going on. Now, I will not sit here and say that we're 100% perfect. We have all the answers. We have all the answers on a black and white paper. Things are still happening in a very significant way and they're changing rapidly. When we talk about construction and quality control, it's two things. You're an engineer and you will understand. We can design a road, and all over the world, roads are being designed to handle a certain amount of axle load onto a road. So if you design it, most of the place around the world goes between 10 to 12 ton per axle. In Guyana, we did not have an axle load control law that prohibit trucks from carry heavy load. The government recently recognized the importance. This has been a long issue being going on where they're trying to implement an axle load control. Right now, in some part of the road, like especially leading into the new bridge, they have a control mechanism in place. But the plan currently is to do that throughout the length and breadth of our country to save our road. You will agree with me as an engineer, you cannot design any road network to handle unknown load from a truck. It has to be controlled. And that is why around the world, the axle load, there is a control mechanism, and we need to comply with that because all these trucks are being designed in such a way that if you overload any one axle, it have a significant negative impact on the road network. And that is why you see around our country, many of the roads are being damaged because trucks are being overloaded. Many of those trucks you see traversing around our country are carrying more, over 50% more than what they're supposed to carry in the trucks. A truck that's supposed to carry 30 gross ton, in some cases have about 50 tons of cargo inside of it. Those will have a definitely negative impact. So we still working, there's still work in progress. But I think if we continuously identify some of these issues and challenges and we work closely with government, we will be able to remedy them going forward. But quality control is also very important stuff. You mentioned you looked at the guy pouring concrete in water. When you look at some of these projects that we have worked on, I can tell you, like Exxon, even the government projects, quality controls, the contract document that you have, the quality control is very, very important in those documents. I can understand that maybe because of the speed at which things are going with, there's a little oversight in terms of making sure that contractors comply 100% to those quality control issues. But like I said, it's a work in progress. We need to continuously get more people, more consultants to oversee some of these projects to make sure that the contractors who are doing them comply with the terms and condition that is in those contracts. Right?
Now, Komal, you mentioned about the road and
Yeah,
the connect.
hold on, Professor. We need to take a break now, and Asif, time for a break now. Okay, Professor, we'll continue with your point.
Yeah, yeah. You know, um, Dr. Singh, you mentioned about all these roads and so on, the highway connecting the airport as it's going to be built, and so on. But you see, you are connected. You wear many caps, right? You know what's going on. But the general public, the messaging needs to be there. The public need to be aware what the government is doing, what the plans are. You know, I, as an engineer, right, I have to see a plan, a concrete plan, right, showing all these connectivity, right? You just can't be in the head or some minister speaking about it. You know, you just speak and go away. People don't see. You want to see something physical. This is how it's being connected. And I'm sure if people see this, they get that information that is very vital for them to understand what the government is doing and not seeing they're doing piece here or piece there, haphazard here, right? They must see that process, right? That is, there's thought, there's planning that went to the, and here's a document that shows what is going on, right? They themselves can see, right? So that messaging is not there. And just a small handful of people to be aware of what's going on is unfair for the Guyanese public.
Okay.
All right, I see where you come from, Doc, and I think these are the forum also that helps to educate our public on what is happening also. But
Mm.
yes, I agree that we can do a lot more in terms of sensitizing the public and bringing the people a little bit more aware. And that's why only 2 days ago I talked about, our media plays a very important role in this country. And we need to make sure that some of our media houses stop having some of the negativity that we're seeing on a daily basis. Not
Mm.
that they should not have and address issues that need to be addressed, but they should also play a role in making sure that they sensitize the public on all the positive development that is happening around the world, around the country, so that our people are being informed also. But more information in the public domain, like you said, it's important, and I think we need to improve on that information.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just take you back to a question that Professor Boudou raised about these new structures, infrastructure, like housing, for example. From your experience, would you say that the drainage and irrigation issues connected with those projects are adequate, or
The
you?
problem in our drainage network right now, we're developing housing scheme and we've taken it out from taking lands that once used to be agriculture network. Um, so those areas, some of those areas, it's difficult to move water from where it is easily to the rivers. And it's for that reason when we look at the Hope Canal, since the Hope Canal was built, that entire area around here never sustained back the flood that they've seen before. And it's for that reason governments have decided, because of the success of the Hope Canal, in terms of bringing all the waters from far away from the ocean or from the river, they've actually right now building three more Hope-like canal, they call it, around the country, which will significantly help and reduce the flooding that we're seeing around the place. Because of the distance some of these housing network are away from the river, it's difficult if you don't have canals of that nature to drain our roadway. You will agree with me that because we sit in, if you're on a high land, it's easy. But because the entire coastline is almost 6 feet below sea level, it's more difficult. And it's for that reason, Hope Lake Canal will be a significant benefit to reduce and mitigate flooding in many of the coastal areas.
Yeah. Now, the another point that Professor Buru raised about corruption in the contracting process. Can you say if the current um, National Tender Board administration, if they're comprised primarily of PVP representatives, or they have representatives from the opposition party as well? Or
I'm
would
not
you know?
sure how it's comprised right now, but I think the opposition also have a role in that on that board. But I
Mm,
don't want to pronounce on that right now. But Doc, I've been hearing what corruption in the construction industry since I joined this industry over 30 years ago. And I can tell you through many governments, you have not even seen anybody being prosecuted. It's simply because in some case, while there might be some sort of perceived reality where that the perception is concerned. I have not seen anyone brought any tangible evidence into court and have anyone, brought to justice based on those allegations. The problem here is that, and I could give you an example. I mean, I was building out on the West Demerara, and there was a certain opposition member came onto one of our projects. He was standing physically on a bridge that was almost 90% completed. And he was like, hey, this is what corruption looked like with the people and the government and the contractor. You're standing on something that's almost 90% completed, and you're still saying that it's not completed, it's not done, it's corruption around it, without pausing for a moment to understand what caused the delay of that particular bridge project. And the delay of that bridge project was simply because they had someone who was squatting on the reserve. They built on the reserve. The government ready to use the reserve now for public good. And instead of we bulldozing the guy, the government decided they're going to work with him to get his building removed. And the guy was so willing and helpful, but we couldn't kick him down overnight and move him out, and forget about the human part and build a structure. Some of those things are what caused some of the delay. But without trying to understand, the first thing that people run to jump to, oh, it's corruption. I mean, we need to start seeing some of these people who make an allegation of corruption to bring it into the court and let's prove it in front of the court. If not, for me, I will still see it, as a comment, keep moving on a day-to-day basis, on a year-to-year basis, where any little thing that happens, if a road fail, it's corruption. If a road is not done in time, it's corruption. It's too routine right now.
It's are you speaking about that Sandy Tongue Bridge project you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Uh, okay. Well, I saw that and it's almost completed.
It's
I actually
completed
drove
since
on it.
February.
It was open. Okay. And there's a right. The trouble is the president had said that he will set up a special corruption unit. Has any movement on that taking place?
Not investment knowledge. I have not seen anything of that sort right now. What I know that as a contractor, I know government have, taken a very firm stance on contractor, getting the work done timely, making sure that if you don't get it timely, liquidated damage is being deducted from your salary. I think they declared last year how much liquidated damage they were able to recover because of non-performance. Um, the government keep 5% back on all contracts work. So there's 5% retention, and most of government projects is 1 year retention they hold the money for. So the defects liability on all government projects is a minimum of a year. So if any failure takes place within the year, government has the opportunity to go and do it themselves and take the money, the 5% they have for you, or they make sure you get it done before you get your money. So when projects are completed, it's not only contractors relieve of any all liability immediately. Contractors have 1 year thereafter to make sure that those projects are properly done. And in the contract also, this is something many people don't know. While I have 1 year, 1 year liability on that project, if 6 months after there is a failure and I go and fix that failure, the clients have the right to tell me that I have to give them 1 more year on that failure area. All right. So there is remedy in the contract. All we need to make sure that is happening right now, based on what we started seeing recently, government is fully enforcing those stuff right now. And as long as
Uh,
those enforcement take place, I could tell you, we will see a lot more improvement in quality of our infrastructure that is being built out here.
mm. There was an outreach in Region 5, West Coast Berbice, where an outreach headed by the Vice President, where he said there were 500 plus pre qualified contractors. And he assured them that each one of them will get a contract by the end of the year, but in phases. Surely that is one method to reduce allegations of corruption, because a lot of people would have been left out of that before. But now all five, at least 500 30 or whatever is the figure, each one of them will at least get one contract. And he said that will apply to other other
Brilliant.
jurisdictions, other regions. So that's a good development. Now, just tell me a little about the other port. You talk about New Amsterdam, but what about? I understand they're building a new stelling at Parika. If you can highlight out on that, because
So
Parika is nearer to Trinidad, and you can
that's
ship
correct.
things direct.
That's correct. Porica, the port development in Porica will be an international port. It will have two side loading facility and two roll on roll off facility. So at any one time, you can have four vessels that will be moored there and operated at the same time. It also will be catering for international vessel. And you correctly right, it's closer to Trinidad and the Caricom region. And it's also closer to most where a lot of the agriculture products are coming from the islands and the Essequibo Islands area. That will reduce the transportation costs, which ultimately will reduce the end price to the consumer. That port currently is in process. The project started. The first phase of that project is estimated to be complete by mid next year. And the second phase of the project, because we need to do it in two phases, because it's still an active port where all the vessels are currently moored, so we couldn't take everything on one time. And the second phase will project to be completed a year after. So by the end of by mid 2028, there'll be a brand new port there. And it's not just a port developed, it's port alone. The surrounding area, if you look at the master plan for that area, it will encompass an entire operation, a full-fledged port facility with storage, warehousing, custom, all the other amenities that is required around a port area. And that's very significant for Porica. That's going to bring a whole host of other economic opportunity for the people around the Porica Stelling area.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Budu.
Yeah. Komal, I just want to mention to you, because you mentioned the Deep Harbor Port, and I think Tara continued the issue about drainage. But let's start with drainage first. I suggested to the authorities that they should consider seriously making detention ponds in new areas, right? The same, and this is not new, as you know, in Florida and other places,
Mhm.
that something's being done. And they sell those lots in Florida as lakefront property, you see. So that would be a very less expensive than things like Hope Canal to do, right? Um, and then for the drainage system, that the existing drainage system, we should make it a smart system with sensors, right, and AI to ensure that whenever rain is going to come, that these water is being the capacity within the drainage system, right, is such that it will accommodate for that incoming rainfall or storm, right? We have the technology in which that can be done if you want to utilize the existing drainage system. So smart uh, drainage system. The other thing I talked about, and you mentioned the Deep Harbor Port that I recommended to the authorities, is that I think that the best place, just based on my own experience in working in Guyana very long time ago, it should, if you're going to be Burbage, it should be offshore, right? And you don't have to dredge the Burbage River continuously, right? That would be the best place with an elevated highway to connect to the land. Right? And I still believe that the best place for a deep harbor port is Esquivel, right? I just want to share that with you. And also, I want to continue with some issues that I had uh, noticed in Guyana. Um, a taxi driver drove me along the Heroes Highway. And, that drive was like you've been on a horse that is galloping, right? And I asked him what was the problem. That taxi driver, who's not an engineer, who didn't go to high school, identified the problem correctly. Then I asked him, what do you think is a solution, right? He gave me a solution that was very close to the solution I had in mind, right? So you see, the public, and that's what I'm saying, the public need to be aware of things, right? And I think that will go a long way in helping the country move forward. You see, because if only a few people know, right, then people are always going to make all kinds of statements, right, that are probably irrational, and corruption is one of those things that comes into there, right?
Mhm.
And perception is more important than reality in these days, right? When people perceive something, right, and they spread it, especially with the news media we have now and the various social media, right, this gets spread very rapidly. Falsity is the new truth in many ways, right? And so the government needs to be aware of that and do something about it. And there's a lot that can be done, you see. So I'm leave that as it is for your comments.
So if let's talk about the Hero Highway, and that's where you said perception is a very dangerous thing. All right, the Hero Highway. If the government have taken the time out to build the highway in a different construction methodology, it would have taken a lot longer. Now that it's gonna reduce the quality of the work. So what they did currently, the structure that was done there, it was sand, and then they put concrete on top of it. On another road construction methodology, you would have put sand on a highway. You would have put, it depends on the area, at an average of maybe 3, 4 feet of sand, all right, or 2 feet of sand, whatever, depends on the soil condition. Or let's use maybe just 1 meter of sand at an average, right, which is about 3 feet of sand. Then they would go and put loam, a mixture of sand and that clay loam material. They'll put maybe about 0.5 meter, 2 feet or something like that with loam. And then they will go and add maybe another 12 to 16 inches of crushed stone. And then they will go and add 4 to 6 inches of on asphalt. When you look at all those subgrade material that I just allude to you there, and the time, if the rain come in and wet the loom, that's it. All right, you can't work. You have to wait until a whole week or so to dry. What they did in the interest of helping the public, this was primarily helping the public to get and ease the traffic congestion, was to move in a different methodology. So they've gone and put sand, then they went and put the concrete on top of the sand. All right. The next phase that they're going to move to right now is that concrete replaces the loom and the crushed stone. What they need to do now, which President Ali already mentioned publicly, there was a tender actually out for this. They're now going to overlay that concrete with maybe 4 inches or something like that with asphalt, 4 to 5 inches of asphalt. When that is completed, you will get now a nice, solid, smooth structure that will last a very, very long time. So we have to weigh between time, change in different methodology, but somewhere down the line you still achieve the same result. When the asphalt goes on top of that concrete right now, we will achieve ultimately the result that we had wanted in the first place. But if we continue to have overloaded trucks on our roadway, I could tell you it will continue to damage our truck. And I'm very happy to hear Minister Ejil mention that they're going countrywide soon to enforce axle load control across the country because of the damage. So we definitely need to manage perception. So the information needs to be out there. We need to explain to the public. And like I said again, these are the forum we need to use sometimes to just explain to the public why they did this instead of this. And they will get a better understanding when they see things are happening. Because if you look at the Hero Highway, there's no other the two material I just mentioned to you. There's none of that under there. But it was replaced with concrete. But ultimately, the asphalt will be the finished result. And that is coming. There was a tender out recently for overlay the concrete. All right.
Yeah, no, but I want to go back to the heroes with you, Komal. I have to be very careful here because I don't want to breach professional ethics or anything here. Um, but a concrete road done well is supposed to last you 40 years. An asphalt road is about half the time. You see, um, that highway, I think there was a lot of problems regarding the surface. Their method that is being used over the last, say, 5 to 7 years. I saw this in Germany and spent in the US, in which you can re-prepare that surface and you then regain the life of that 40 years of that concrete highway. Asphalt, rubberized asphalt put on concrete highway is actually to help highway concrete highway, which already extended their 40 years, to get another, say, maybe 15 years, right? So that's 35 years, 40, 55 years of life. Now you put in rubberized asphalt on there, right, which has a 15-year, right, which on a highway initially supposed to last you 40 years, right? And if you don't do it well, it probably lasts you 10 years. And if you actually don't maintain it well, 5 years. Now, I don't want to argue with it because I said we don't want to get into professional ethics issues here. But there are some of these things that are going on. But I think generally what I see is happening in Guyana is is very heartening to know that that country is being transformed, right? And the people I spoke to, especially the ministers, they're very serious about what they are doing, right? And they're committed to making Guyana a very good place for people to live and work.
Yep. So, Professor, just to answer you quickly here, I agree with you. If a concrete work is designed to last
Mhm.
40 years,
Mhm.
then the rebars that you're using in there, the thickness of the slab will be totally different from what we had here. But the intention of this highway initially was not for it to be continuously remain to be concrete. And it's for that reason you have seen they weren't caged with half-inch or three-quarter-inch rebars tied onto it. All right. They use BRC basically. All right. Because the intention was to bring it up to asphalt level at some point in time. So I agree, 40 years if your concrete is done properly,
Mhm.
but not properly when you talk about it, it's a very
Mhm.
expensive proper. So if you know you're going to use concrete and you're not going to go somewhere down the line and resurface it, definitely it can give you that lifespan.
Yeah, again, Komal, I don't want
Yeah, yeah,
to have an
sorry.
argument. I saw the design of that, right? That road, right? And I know what it is, and it's supposed to last 40 years, right? So I don't want to. I think we won't argue further publicly on this.
so
All right.
the the road at West Demerara, West Bank Demerara, how is that structure is different from the Heroes Highway, right?
The West Bank,
The
the one
West Bank.
from Schoolyard
Yeah.
to Crane,
No, no, no.
the
I'm talking about West Bank,
oh West Bank.
by going to Wales area.
Okay. The West Bank Road was always a asphalt with other sub-base material. The the construction that we have done recently to upgrade some of the critical section that was damaged, we have done a full construction in those areas, and the construction was basically sand, loom, crusher run. We use geogrids, geofabrics in between there, and then we put 4-inch asphalt on top. That's a very expensive operation, but like you said, it's intended to last a long time, and that for that reason, they have gone with the full construction on that road area for those areas that we have done full reconstruction in.
It's completed now.
It's completed, yeah. The entire road project is completed.
From what point to what point to Wales?
We start from Lagrange and we gone all the way to Potentia, but we have only addressed some of the critical section, like from Lagrange all the way into Bagotville. We've done a lot of widening, putting in concrete drains, Professor, like you said,
Mhm.
doing it the right way the first time right now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then Good Intent area, some part in Potentia area. Those were some critical sections that need to be addressed, and those were addressed.
Mhm. All right, we are coming to the end of our program. Um, I don't think we have any questions from viewers, but I would like Professor Buru make your closing point, and then we'll ask you, Dr. Komal, to make your closing remarks. Professor Buru.
Well, you know, Komal, every time you come on this program, you share a number of very important information to our viewers. because you wear so many different hats, right? That you can give us a broad picture of what's going on and also the details in various areas. And I thank you for coming on this program
Thank you.
again and sharing vital information for us as part of the diaspora.
Thank you very much, Professor.
All right. Dr. Komal, we ask you to make your closing remarks.
All right. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Professor. Professor and Doc, the diaspora have a wealth of knowledge sitting out there. Guyana, with the transformation that we're moving, because of the massive movement and the massive development that is taking place, we have a limited skill set and resource to support all that is currently happening. It is important the diaspora become a lot more involved in offering their services um, to the development and growth in Guyana. And I want to say here publicly, we encourage more diaspora, people in the diaspora to return to Guyana and get involved in some growth, some development, bring back your skill set that you have, work with some of the locals, help to develop our people and the skills so that they can meet the growing demand of our market. It's always a pleasure to sit with you guys and have a conversation. And I think more of these conversations will help to sensitize our public and the diaspora on the progress and what is happening in Guyana and to help mitigate some of those negative perceptions that exist in the public domain from time to time. I thank you all once again for having me on this program. Thank you.
Uh, we
Thank
thank
you.
you also for, as Professor Boudou says, having such a wide understanding of the development trust of the government. And, it's a great credit to have you here. And we want to thank you very much for making this time available. So we'll probably get you back in another 3 months' time to give us an update on other projects you want at Parika. And I think, do you know if the government has entered into a contract to extend the Linden to the Linden to Rupini Highway? That project was funded by a UK grant,
That's right.
but beyond that, um, to reach to Linden, they had to secure some additional funding. If there's on track.
It's on track. They've just
I'm
completed.
talking about Linden to Mabura.
Yeah. They've just completed 100 kilometers of that roadway, right? So you can drive 100 kilometer into the interior currently. The project will continue. I think they're in the process of closing up maybe another section in terms of negotiation and award. So that project can continue. There's one other bridge that needs to be built. Most of the bridge are already completed. The one at Kurupukari is the only bridge I think that is currently outstanding. And I know there's active conversation going on as to relates to what type of structure they're going to be putting up there. So yes, that project is ongoing. There's active conversation to keep that project going all the way to let him.
You have an idea when the bridge at Linden will be completed? The new
The
bridge.
Linden Bridge, I think maybe in another month or so, most of the work is pretty much completed. All the approach is already completed to some extent. I say within a month from now, that bridge, the Mackenzie Bridge, will be open. That's another remarkable achievement for infrastructure development. If you go to Linden right now, take a moment quickly. That in the morning and in the afternoon, it takes you over an hour to cross that Mackenzie Bridge because the amount of traffic. So that bridge now, because it's a full two lane, it will remove that bottleneck significantly. Very,
Uh,
very transformative for the people and the environment in Linden.
yeah. Um, road. Somebody just sent us, they asked him, road shoulders, asking whether road shoulders to retain the stability. What do you think about that, Professor Boudou?
Um, you need to have road shoulders in most places, right? I haven't really taken a detailed look to see what's going on in those roads. but those are part of roads. Road shoulders are part of roads.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, Dr. Komal Singh, and wish you all the best on your engagements in the Caribbean in another couple of days. And Professor Buru, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.